3 seconds or so, just to melt down. So, good morning, everyone. So, from a company called Science Rockstars, and we say, the name comes with an obligation. I'm going to explain you not, a lot about the product, some about the product, but more on the background of the product. Brian was talking about engagement. There's several ways of engagement, like the numbers we use, the 69% of customer satisfaction. In general, we use averages. So whenever we talk, for instance, if we do an experiment, an A/B test, it's 10,000 people see version A, 10,000 people see version B, and then B does 10% better than A on average. You just spoke to 20,000 people online, and based on those 20,000 people, you think the rest of your customers or potential customers probably act the same, and they're not. And that's interesting about technology. When we started with marketing 50 years ago, the Don Draper era, it made sense to use averages to communicate messages. Can I have a little bit less voice? I keep hearing myself, which is annoying also, by the way. So in this era of marketing, when it started, it was great just to figure out a little bit more that we could spark this interest a little bit more in the product. Marketing was so much more than what it is nowadays, actually. When we talk about marketing, especially larger firms, it's marketing communication. Someone else comes up with the product, someone else did the research, they just give you the product, say, sell this baby. I don't want to use a bad word, but let's call it a baby for now. And then you go to an ad agency and then you start thinking on how to put it in the market. That's what it is nowadays. But 20 years ago, someone, very small, someone in the marketing industry, it's an auto, even better, called Cialdini. Someone heard of Cialdini before? Cialdini figured out, as a marketing professor actually, that the way we address people is as important as probably the product itself. But most of the time there's choice on where you can buy the product. But if I ask you more or less if you would like the product because it's on sale, and I'm in Holland, probably you will respond a little bit more positive. Or if I said, someone famous like Wibbo says it's a great innovative product, would you like to buy? These things, these call to actions, actually help us facilitate in what we do. And Cialdini was a really, really incredible person about it. I'm going to skip a couple of slides. It's just about bullshit on what we do. This guy, so Cialdini. He figured out the way you communicate is not only on the product, but also on how you express service to people. It's very important. And then this other guy came along, B.J. Fogg, Stanford University professor. He took 10 years after Cialdini. Cialdini was 94. In 2003, he came up with a book called Persuasion Technology. So whatever Cialdini did, and we all know Cialdini, even not by name, and if you're marketing, actually you should. Whenever you go in a hotel, you always see this little card in your bathroom. Please reuse your towel. That's something Cialdini did. He came up with alternatives also. We'll show you an example a little bit later. And you help me out guessing how much more response you would get just by altering the message. Not a product, reusing of towel, but just a message. B.J. Fogg at Stanford, he was more on how to make people live healthier. It's nothing to do with marketing, you would say. But in a way it is. He came up with, whatever Cialdini was doing, he figured out how is it interesting enough, helping me, facilitating that people act more healthy. And it's not like a thing they feel that they have to do. It's something that becomes like a behavior. So that's what B.J. Fogg worked on, and he wrote a book 2003 called Persuasion Technology. So how can technology facilitate those kind of behaviors? Cialdini had the 6 main principles, again, 20 years ago. Nowadays there are 220 versions for your liking. Most of the time those 6 will do when you start doing, segmentation, messaging, marketing messaging to your clients. And most of the time you already do. Most of the people who are in marketing use those technologies, use those messages. But the point is we don't always know why we use them. It's just because it's there. So then you put them more or less in categories. I'm not going to call them all out, just maybe one or two examples. Commitment. Commitment is something when you speak out, write down something you want to do in the future, the chance that you will actually do so is significantly higher. Amazon has a very good example of this. They call it a wish list. By you putting something on a wish list, you just express to yourself, maybe also to other people, that you want to buy that book. The chance that you will buy the book just became a little bit higher, significantly higher actually, than the moment you didn't put it on a wish list. I never can pronounce this. English is not my native language, so I'm not even going to try. So, the Hare Krishna, famous for this. They always first try to sell books here in Amsterdam. You want to buy a book? And everyone said, no, get lost. Or, I'm here on a holiday, please don't talk to me. And then they started altering their methods. They gave you a rose for nothing. Just accepting the rose. 3 meters afterward, they asked you for a donation, free donation, and then they gave you the book. They sold a lot more books. Why? Because the moment you accept something, we as people tend to do something back for you, even if it's out of balance on what it is. You accept a rose and then put money down, even if you don't have to. You feel obliged, more or less, to do so. So these kind of things help in marketing. So what did B.G. Fogg then do with it? He figured out, so if you want to live a healthier life, if people should live healthier, because what Brian said also, the McDonald's stuff. I lived in New York for a while for another product company here from Holland. And it was just way easier to go to McDonald's for $10. If you buy your groceries in Brooklyn Heights where I lived, for $100 I had groceries for the day. So I figured out every day $100 just for some eating. It's $10, you just go to McDonald's. You understand why McDonald's every now and then does better. So he figured out, so what are the elements for people to change behavior? Because it's about behavioral change, you want to live healthier. But most of the people do is 1st of January, it's New Year, gonna live a healthy life, lose weight, subscription to a gym for a year, it's a motivator, and 3 weeks later, I'm not going anymore. A motivator, how strong it sounds, how good you feel about yourself on actually taking the subscription to the gym. Why you're not going anymore after 3 to 6 weeks? Because it's not part of your behavioral pattern. So what B.G. Fogg more or less figured out, and I'm getting to a point where it starts becoming interesting because I see you guys looking at me, what the fuck? Just look at things that should be part of your behavior. And if I want to change your behavior more, long term, I should change it in small steps. So every time you take the elevator at work, how can I find a motivator? At least once a week you take the stairs. These are persuasive triggers. Like you're saying, so many % of the people today took the stairs instead of the elevator. That might be a motivator for you. But the point is we act, respond differently and act differently to those kind of motivators. But those persuasive triggers, the reason why we should take the stairs instead of the elevator, these were the reasons why people more or less start thinking about those things. No, even better. Most of the time you're not even thinking about them. You just accept them and do something with it. It's subconscious. And these 2 guys that work at Stanford for the PhD. One is Maurits Kaptein, co-founder also of the Science Rockstars. The other one is Dean Eccles, works now at Facebook. Whenever you do a search at Facebook, he most likely was part of the algorithms that were written around it, how to make you find stuff on Facebook. Maurits, however, is assistant professor also here in Holland, going to Nijmegen, the Artificial Intelligence Department, and works on our algorithms. So they took whatever B.G. Fogg was doing at Stanford also. They tried to figure out, how does technology, as we have it nowadays, affect the way we use those knowledge. The knowledge from Cialdini, how to use persuasive triggers and how to change behavior using them more accurate in this case. And Maurits was always fascinated, 6 years ago when he started his PhD at Stanford, an actual salesperson in a store compared to stuff we do online. salesperson in the store starts, the first day he starts, he knows two things. These are my products. People will come. If you gotta, let's assume people will come. In the store, the salesperson starts talking. I don't know who you are, but we start talking. Now after a day, he learned already from the talks that he had with people and adapts. He probably adapts already after every talk he has to a person who comes into the store, he tries to sell something. After 6 months, you walk into his store, he has no clue who you are, but he already has a feeling on what might work on you. And that's stuff we don't do online. What I said earlier, I started doing multivariate testing in 2004. Even with the A/B testing, we have this story we tell to everyone. Most websites have just one story, which is, basically if you compare it to the technology we have nowadays, which is not necessary. We can adapt real-time telling the stories to different people. Two ways to go about it. Segmentation. A lot of marketers actually call it personalization, being more relevant. Also in one of the slides Brian just used. And that's right, and it works. A/B testing also works. But again, it's a process you set up. A couple of people figure out what they want to test. You build a test, use a tool to register more or less what happens with the test you were trying to figure out. Run a report. B does 10% better than A. B goes live. How cool is that? Afterwards, you never test the page again. Why? Because you're running another test, doing another campaign, trying to figure out what works also. So whatever you do online is based on those averages, which is fine because doing nothing really doesn't work. Maurits and Dean try to figure out, how bring this real salesperson to an online store because technology is there without it have to be too difficult. So they figured out, we can try to solve the whole thing or do something small that really helps, putting some emphasis on how we communicate to people for sales and service, by the way. I'll tell you a little bit on their stuff later. So the goal of persuasion is to change someone's attitude or behavior. Does that work? These are these little cards Cialdini uses in the hotels. 28% better conversion, 33% better conversion. Just by stating different messages on the same product. Reuse your towel. So it's not, what you try to sell is also on how you ask, and how you try to sell the product also in this case. But it's interesting, what I said earlier about the A/B test, do we all respond to the same kind of arguments? So Maurits and Dean figured out, let's do a test. If we do a test on those arguments and on, let me see where the button is. There are two scenarios. If we do a test and on average we go 8% up, but the individual results is everyone more or less moving up, responding better to the messages we're using, or is it more like in the statistics, the average goes up by 8%, but if we look at the individuals, which we don't do a lot of time online, there's a lot of spread. And if there's spread within the experiment and how people respond to your message, is it interesting enough to figure out how you would respond to the message? How did you respond to the message? Now can I talk to you again next time you come by? Instead of giving you something based on a segment, on a test that we did, try to figure out who you are, like the salesperson in the store. Interesting enough, so this is a psychology profile. There's nothing about the products you're selling, nothing about the services. It's how you respond to messages, how you would buy a car, maybe even how you would choose a political party. Those arguments are so relevant. Maybe less of an impact given the context, but they're relevant. If you would buy a car based on scarcity, it's a deal, it's a good deal, kind of car you want to have. Most likely if you buy shoes, you will also buy shoes, even if you like them, but are on sale also. It's who you are as a person, how you respond to those kind of arguments. So it's funny, if it's as simple as that, just persuasion triggers influence the kind of behavior that you show in general. Why don't you use it more often? So we figured out, since we started in August 2012, First customer we had was Booking.com. Not the smallest customer to start with, also because of the articles we had in Forbes, TechCrunch, Wired, and so on. We said, let's just start with email, because Booking.com does on a good day 500,000 hotel rooms reservations, and you want to be in the first week of a company be -1 on their sales funnel, and then you think we did great, and they think no, sucks actually. So we said let's start with email, and the only thing we did on the emails was subject line. The rest of the email is always just products and destinations and hotels. Not a lot of stuff you can do there. So we determined with our algorithms, in this case, who gets what email. And from day one on, we had no clue. Like the salesperson in the store, but then we're sending out batches. And every batch, there's a response. So there's an average and a more personal response. And we measure both. So after 4 or 5 emails, we were up 10% on whatever Booking thought they were doing. And what they do at Booking is pretty awesome. I think right now over 100 people just doing analytics. Not only data, psychology, behavioral science, that kind of stuff also. User experience, all integrated over there. So we started to build a product from there. So what it does 2 things: optimization, personalization. So whenever you come to the store, we determine what kind of arguments we use. Although I don't know you, I'm the salesperson. I'm already working here for a while now, being the Persuasion API's product. We serve out the arguments used whenever we want to talk to you. In a sales process or in a service process, that doesn't really matter. And based on those arguments and your response, we learn. Next person coming in, doing the same thing, and we keep learning, keep improving ourselves. That's the optimization part. Even if you then start running a campaign, for instance, if it's on sales, it recognizes a trend that, scarcity does better this week than the week before. And although I'm a existing customer, I have a personal profile also, and I like maybe in general social proof. I will get served the scarcity argument also, because the algorithms figured out whatever I like as a person, something is trending, the least I can do is learn how this scarcity message works for you this week because of the trend. And every time we interact, we learn. We adapt your profile and a general profile. And it keeps going. There's this visibility in the end on what you might like better than. But other than, the traditional marketing, if you want to call it that, is once you're, male, in your 40s, living just outside of Amsterdam, I'm part of a group. And you start communicating to that group a certain way, which is fine. But the point is, technology already brings us a little bit further, and it's so easy to use. Like a standard A/B test, only now there's some algorithms behind it determining A or B, and it goes on and on and on, and learns about you, and how, in general, how people like to be communicated with your brand, in this case. So with Booking.com, after 6 weeks, we got the email. It's like 200 meters away from our office also. The product seems to deliver as promised. Can we roll out worldwide? Meaning over, dozen of million profiles, people that communicated through an email. And we said, yes, let's set up a meeting. To give you an idea on how Booking works, no meeting, can you deliver? I said, yeah. But 2 weeks later, we were talking to 20 million of their people, clients of their people, sorry, sounds awkward. And performance actually went up. And the only thing we did, our algorithm determined what kind of argument to use in a subject line, and we start talking to you. Although I don't know you yet for the first time, but I learn from all the people I'm talking to, have a better idea what might work on you also. And if you click, buy something, your profile gets updated. Your more personal data. Next time you come by, next time we send you an email, I already know a little bit more then. With Philips, after 5 email shots we did for one of their products, we had over 100% better conversion rates. Just by altering, in a small way, the message. It's not like sending a totally different email. So since then we have now, I think, over 25 customers. Last year and a half, the only thing we try to figure out is how to put something out of behavioral science, with this big data infrastructure on, underneath it also. how to put it into the market in such a way, talk to marketing people, online marketing people, that they don't question the stuff behind it. The thing with online marketing people, they like to have buttons, they like to, as human as a race always feels that we know better. Most of the time we do, some cases we don't. In this case I would say, don't try to beat a computer. Even if the salesperson in a store is a very good salesperson, he keeps forgetting, he probably forgets also your name, you saw your face before, that kind of stuff. Good thing on a computer, if you want to call it good, in my case I call it good, we don't forget. We don't forget at all. Every interaction we had, we still know. So, and we recognize a trend on your behavior, other people's behavior, and we do something with it. So what we do, basic persuasion profiling, build a psychology profile, very easy triggers, stuff you already do. If you try to sell something, if you have something in service, you use persuasive triggers, the call to actions. Because if you don't, probably people won't click on your site. Those persuasive triggers are always there. We just make it a little bit more smarter how to use them to the people you're talking to. Let me end up with a couple of examples. A simple thing as this. At UPC, one of our clients, we only determine if it says an hour tip or exclusive. And funny enough, you might believe it or not, this has significant impact. Significant is always depending on the client you're talking to. With ING, significant is something else. And with, for instance, Open Haardhout-gigant. I hear you recognize. No. Believe it or not, it's a pretty big website in the winter. This really works. It really worked, and the stuff that they do, for instance, with KLM also, we try to mix up wordings and visuals, because we still need to learn as a startup also. Funny enough, so far for us, on the real-time decisioning engine that we have, it doesn't have impact if only use wordings. We're trying to find pictures that express the wordings also. And I'm working here with a bunch of scientists, again, science rock stars. The only thing you look at the numbers, and now, Jay, don't do it anymore. Doesn't show significant impact. I said, well, I would say, visually, it's more fitting if you would do something like this, put some scarcity in it, put a cap, speed, you feel this urge, I'm doing something. If you go to booking.com, which I got just tapped on the fingers for a little bit, 2 rooms wrapped, 3 people are looking at this hotel as at that moment, sense of urgency always works. Booking is really a master of using those persuasive triggers. Funny enough, and that's, let me end with that quote also, out of the research of Dean and Maurits, is that using less persuasive arguments to a person is more effective, 50% plus more effective than using more. So if you think, grab Cialdini's book, I'm going to start using this principles also, please do so. But whenever you do, know that using less arguments, way more effective than using many. Thank you very much.
Right, at this time, Jay, please stay right here. If you have any questions for Jay right now, we have about 5 minutes that we can take to answer your questions. And Jay is right here. You heard the presentations. Does anybody have a question for him? Okay. I'm not sure if I can persuade you right now. Okay. Let's do the mic here.
Okay, Jay, I heard your story before because we invited you to do a keynote. But I think it would be interesting for the audience to know, so suppose you want to start using Persuasion API and use the triggers.
Yeah.
And Liferay. What does it take?
So actually not a lot. So one of the things we worked on is to set you up and get running pretty easy. So whenever you have, if you're able to do an A/B test on your website using, dynamic content, if you want it, you can do it. Same thing. Technology-wise, it's the same. Like an A/B test, it goes with a little script, preferably in your tag manager. You're all set. And the only thing we do is then have 3, 4 versions of content which then keeps running. One of the cases we have is rituals.com, body lotion, shampoos, that kind of stuff. It's a Dutch company. They're now in 6 countries. And the only thing they did is integrating it. They got a small, actually, web team, no analytics people in there, and they put it live. And after a week, we saw the click ratios were already up by 5%. And then everyone went on some holiday last summer. And normally with an A/B test, it's nice. You run a report, put something live, go on a holiday, do the next test when you're back. But like this salesperson in the store, it kept talking to every person coming to the store, although the rest of the personnel was on a summer holiday. And after 3 months, I looked at the dashboard again, and it was up by 13%. So it went from 5 to 13%, and you had to do nothing. And the only thing you had to do was like setting up a technically A/B test, little JavaScript, preferably in your tag manager, you're all set. Good.
Okay. Any more questions? Okay, now at this point, thank you, Jay. Can we give Jay a hand?
Thanks for having me.